Welcome to the Ty and Rye the Finance Guys podcast, covering weekly investment news, important financial topics, and expert interviews. We want to help you become more knowledgeable about the financial world around you. This is not an offer to sell you anything, and remember, past performance doesn't indicate future results. Now your hosts, Ty Hansen and Ryan Robertson.
Merry Christmas, Tyler.
He didn't do the voice.
I'm going to do it. Don't worry. Don't worry. Everybody,
Eventually.
Don't worry.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
surprise part of this episode that you don't know what it is yet because we botched the first recording. But there's a surprise coming in this episode.
And the first recording started off in a very awesome manner.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really good.
It was really good. I like it.
Because here's what we are going to do. Since it's Christmas in a few days, we are going to review the greatest Christmas movie of all time.
All time.
Not A Christmas Story, not Christmas Vacation. I know those are great. Elf, those are all great.
Not Die Hard.
Not Die Hard. They're all great. All great Christmas movies.
Right.
We're going to do It's a Wonderful Life. Now,
love that movie.
most of you probably haven't ever even heard of it, or if you have no idea what it's about. But not only are we going to review the movie, but we're going to tie the movie's theme, one of the themes into finance, because there's a really great financial element in It's a Wonderful Life.
Absolutely.
And if everybody sticks around,
one little mama dollar and the baby dollar.
if everybody sticks around, you may get a Jimmy Stewart impression. I don't know. It may come out at some point. You never know. It's going to happen though.
And then, so unfortunately for our listeners and viewers, but because of the technical difficulties, we had to start over.
Yeah.
And you missed the really, really, really good Ryan Robertson impression. Because Jimmy Stewart is one of the greatest actors of all time.
He really
Absolutely.
is. He really
is.
He's before his time.
Right.
Everybody in the 40s and 50s are like very dramatic, very caricature-ish. Jimmy Stewart's a very real person in those, especially It's a Wonderful Life. He's just so great.
Oh, so good. And one of my favorite, actually, it's kind of a boring movie, but he's so amazing in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where he does the filibuster scene.
There you go.
So good. Oh my gosh, it is so good.
Yeah, he is. He's amazing.
But yeah, dude, greatest Christmas movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably because why we both love it so much is because of the financial elements in it. But like the financial lessons to be learned in that movie are very powerful. So yeah, dude, what better like perfect podcast to do at Christmas time?
Yeah.
Than It's a Wonderful Life.
Then two idiots who love it talk about it. Nothing better than that.
Mary.
Oh, it's getting close.
we have.
It's getting close, Ty. I wanted to do it, but I'm holding off. I need to hold off for a special time.
So my wife and I have this thing. We have this thing that we do. Oh, Mary. So, you know, when there's like 2 or 3 times in the movie where he grabs his wife, Mary, and he pushes his cheek up against hers. He doesn't kiss her. It's the cheek press.
Yeah.
So every now and then I'll grab my wife and I'm like, oh, and I give her like a cheek press.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary, don't
George
you recognize
has got a little bit
Mary?
of a temper. He likes to get grabs people a lot.
Mary.
Yeah.
Bert, don't you know me?
Yeah. Don't tempt me.
Anyway,
don't stop tempting me.
So we do ongoing. We do the cheek press, and it's the funny. Anyways, my kids
do the what?
Laugh. The cheek press. We're like I'll grab my wife or one of my daughters and like pull them close to give them like a hug, and like it's like he squishes his face into Mary's face. So the cheek press. So we do the cheek press at my house because of It's a Wonderful Life.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about one of the main parts of this. Right, we're going to get into some of this, but at the end of it, we're going to talk about some of our favorite parts, some parts that are hilarious and just ridiculous about the show itself, things we love about it. But we're going to do it at the end.
I think that there may be. I actually think we just need to pepper funny parts of the movie that we love throughout the entire podcast. That's what we have to do. Okay.
Now, the central part of this is a guy named George Bailey.
Yes.
And his dad And I don't know, his uncle, who I don't know, maybe he's mentally handicapped. I don't know.
I think he
might be. He's got something.
He's got all the strings on his fingers, so he remembers things.
George Bailey's dad and Uncle Billy run this company called the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan.
Yeah. Yes.
What were we gonna say?
Why does Uncle Billy have a crow that flies around the office?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
like a pet crow.
It is. It's a pet crow at their office at the Bailey Building and Loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they run this Bailey Building and Loan, and the story sort of turns around this thing. And I thought it was really interesting because now not only we get to talk about our show, like dorks, but we also get to tie in some of these elements. So the Bailey Building and Loan, right, is, describe it. Like what kind of institution is it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you brought up a point earlier, like we were talking about this beforehand, about like kind of like a credit union, where it's so it's like bank rather than because there was I don't even remember what was the name of Potter's bank, because Potter's kind of the antagonist,
the old man Potter. We'll talk about him for sure.
You'll be enjoying Christmas in jail. That was a terrible Potter impersonation. So Potter owns the bank, right? And typically banks will have their they get money from the Federal Reserve, like we talked about a week or two ago. And there are some similarities, but the Bailey Building and Loan, the idea with the buildings and loan was they used to get deposits, and the deposits would turn around, and that's what they would lend out.
So deposits from just normal, regular people.
Yeah. So Ryan comes into the bank, deposits $1,000, and he gets paid from that. I turn around and I lend 500 of that out to, I don't know, Nate or Steve or Billy or Joey. They build their house with it. And then when they're making their rent payments, I turn around and I pay Ryan part of his interest out of that payment, and I keep some of it. So that was the structure with it.
Yeah.
A little bit more like a credit union. So.
Yeah, and so they're making these deposits, so it acts a teeny bit like a bank, but its sole purpose is to take those deposits, lend them out, pay the depositors, secure their money for one, but two, pay them a little bit of an interest.
Right. And the whole idea in the movie too that I like, and this is kind of an interesting thought as we look at the modern day bank.
Yeah,
right.
Which is nothing like this, by the way.
Not even close. Well, you know what's interesting? Well, I won't get off on the second tangent, but the first tangent. Okay, so
stay in the first one. Please.
But what is interesting about this is like if you look at the whole point of the movie is kind of the camaraderie, the how the Bailey family really wanted to help build and support the town, right? And how they loved the town and how they looked out for each other, right? And there's even the scene where, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a scene where it's like, well, your money's in Billy's house and your money's in
you're about
in
there.
John's house.
You're about there,
right? I can't give you the money's in their house. You know what I mean? It's like
you're getting there.
It's pretty
good. In their house.
And it's in Bailey's house, and it's Stevie's house. So, but there was this element of like how banks it used to be like all based on, and these buildings and loans and things like that. Yeah. It's all about the relationships, right? And not like banks are today. Anyways, I just think that's really interesting how, in our modern society where, we have all this technology and stuff, there's very little of that banking relationship element anymore.
Yeah. Well, and so it kind of comes to that kind of one of those points in the movie where there's this run on the bank, and this is going basically right back to the Great Depression time period.
The day that George marries Mary.
Yep. And it's a real rainstorm.
Oh, it is. It is. It's like rain on your wedding day.
I mean, it's more than a rainstorm. I mean, it looks like they were just dumping water on people. It was very, very wet that day.
It was a very wet day.
But they're calling it there's a run on the bank. Now, obviously the run on the bank means that they think the bank is failing. So they want to get there first to try to get their deposits out first before the bank runs out of money is essentially the idea.
Right.
And this is, again, we're going back before FDIC. Remember that. I mean, this is before the Great Depression. This is before the SEC, FDIC, all the things that kind of banking regulation that occurred and came out of the Great Depression. This is before that. So if you put money with the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan or the bank, and that bank went away, so did all of your money, and there was nothing to get it back from. So on his wedding day, they just got married. They're in the car. They're talking to Ernie. Ernie's gonna take him and is asking him where they're gonna go for their honeymoon, and it's gonna be the highest building and the biggest the most expensive champagne and the prettiest woman.
The prettiest woman. That's pretty good. Your Jimmy Stewart's pretty good. Well, and I think too, he has a stack of money because he's been saving up for this, to travel. Because the whole movie, the whole point is like, he wants to get away. Jimmy Stewart's character wants to get away. He wants to travel, right? And he wants to see the world, and he never gets out of he never gets out of his little hometown. So he has all this money to go travel on his honeymoon, right? And because of the run on the bank, he brings all that money into the bank to Bailey's Building to kind of help support, right? It's like, and that's where that whole scene of like, they're like, oh, I want my money back, and he's like, well, you can't. Your money's in the house. It's in Johnny's house down the street. You see, and it's in Freddie's house. I can't give you the money. and he's like, let me just give you a little bit just to tide you over, okay? We're not failing.
What do you need for the next week?
What? And then the guy's like, I want he's like, come on now, Fred, come on. I want my $100 and I'm closing my account. Yeah, and he gives him the $100. He's like, we're not going to close your account, Fred. Your accounts are still good here. And then the next lady comes into the scene and she's like, I just need like $10. And he's like, oh, bless you, Janie. And he gives her her $10 and he like kisses her on the head because she's like, she trusts him. That's the whole point.
And that's the thing. So there's the banks are basically don't have any money. So everybody's trying to get their money out of the bank, right? Before the bank runs out of money. But what Jimmy Stewart can do with George Bailey is doing is to keep the company open. He doesn't want to have to pay all of cash they've got, pay it out. Because then the company is bankrupt and they're gone. So what he's doing is taking his own cash and just saying, let me tide all of you over for a period of time till the bank opens, because the banks close their doors to protect themselves, right?
Yep.
That's where this scene comes in. Well, so they're taking their honeymoon money, and he's just trying to satisfy everybody, just to keep it going, and they need to keep some money on hand, which they ended up with $2. The
mama dollar and the dad. What does he say?
If you want to stay in business, you better have some babies.
You better make some baby dollars. They have $2 left over. Uh-huh. Well, the other interesting thing too in that scene that's really important from a financial standpoint, hence the podcast, is also what would happen at that time too was you had banks trying to cannibalize on other banks, and there's even that scene where the guy comes in and he's like, Potter's giving 50 cents on the dollar for all of our because people would keep an actual ledger of what the bank owed them, which is so crazy to think about that, how crazy that was like back then. It's like literally you have a ledger. Yeah, well, and it's like that's your account.
Yeah. So Potter owns the bank. He owns everything else. And he's basically, as an individual, is saying, I will buy your deposits that you have, your interest in the building and loan, for 50 cents on the dollar, and you just get your cash and you just walk off. But then he owns the rest of your deposits. So he's Potter's not selling, he's buying.
Potter's buying, and you're all suckers for it. Dude, that was a really good Jimmy Stewart. Do you want the moon, Mary? I'll lasso the moon for you, Mary. Do you want the moon?
This whole thing's gonna just turn into quotes.
No, dude. Our subscribers.
It's gonna go. Those numbers are way down.
I love it. Do you want Mary? Do you want the moon? Do you want the moon, Mary? I'll lasso the moon for you.
Yeah. So that's what they do, and he saves the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan.
Bailey's Building and Loan, not Bailey Brothers. Bailey's Building and Loan.
Bailey Brothers. I think it's Bailey Brothers.
Bailey's Building and Loan.
Whatever. If it's Bailey Brothers.
When you watch it tonight, because you said you're watching it tonight, I watch it on Christmas Eve every year. When you watch it tonight, I'll bet you $5 it's Bailey's Building.
And if it's not, you owe me $1,000.
Perfect.
I
I'm
better
down
odds.
with that. 100%.
So he saves the whole building and loan company.
Yes,
and
he does.
This actually goes back to the other scene, which I love, which is when his dad dies. And Potter, who is the rich, old, nasty guy.
The old banker, yep.
He was on the board for the building and loan company, and he wanted to dissolve the whole thing. And right, he wanted to get rid of it. He's like, there's no point for it.
Well, and the reason for that, because that's important, is, and this is what's so interesting about the whole movie, is this idea of like kind of the monopolistic.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and he wants his bank to be the only bank, and his houses that he builds to be the only houses built. And anyways, continue your thought.
Yeah, that's right. And George has this whole speech where
got the black armband on.
He's got his black armband on, and he's talking to the board, and he says, "Well, you're the board, you make the decisions." And he says this whole thing where he's like, this community needs this one horse institution, if not for having to crawl to Potter for a loan to build a house. Does it, to have a what do you say, a warm meal or a nice meal and a warm bath, like, do you need that? Do we need this for people in this town? Yeah. Cause he wants to create and keep this kind of competition going because, he cares about people themselves, and he doesn't want to have to rake people over the coals to earn extra interest.
Exactly. And they ultimately end up making George the main guy running the bank with his uncle. What's the uncle's name again?
Billy. Crazy Billy.
Billy. Yeah, Crazy Billy. Yeah. So Billy and George end up running the Bailey Building and Loan.
The Bailey Building and Loan, the BBL.
Not Bailey. Yeah, they end up running it together from the scene. And that's interesting though. That's what I like. Kind of the neat premise of the whole movie is this idea of and this is what I think is so applicable for today's day and age, right? And this is what you and I are trying to accomplish with this podcast. This is what we're trying to accomplish with our company, is this idea that that the world of finance shouldn't just be this cold-hearted, thing that you can't, that's just, there's no relationships, right?
Right.
That's what we're trying to build, are relationships. So you've got people you can talk with and trust and things like that. And that's what I love about the whole movie, is this idea of community, right? The idea of community and love, and the fact that, even if it's not the most successful bank, it's it's still a part of the community because it represents the community. Right. Yeah. And not greedy, some greedy capitalistic ideology. So,
well, and the funny thing is George is torn between that because George wants to go out.
Yeah.
Leave the town. He wants to go into bigger, better things, build skyscrapers. He's like, build a modern city. He's like, well, you can have $1 million before the age of 25. You're like, I'll have half of that in cash.
Yeah. Well, there's even a scene too where I love when he goes to see Potter. And Potter invites him in, and he's offering him a job. He's like, "Oh, yeah," or no, that's George.
That's my that's probably my most favorite part of the movie right there,
where he offers him the job. Yeah. And it's
he's like, "Oh,
again,
I don't need to think about it. Gosh darn it! Just sit around here and you spin your little web."
Yeah. What does he call him?
You're nothing but a scurvy little spider.
Scurvy little spider. Right. And it's this, and Potter is trying to squash this bank any way, shape he can. And that's one way he tries to do it, is hey, I'll hire you. Yeah. Right. And I'll give you all this money, and then I'll take over this whole town.
Well, that's the thing with George, is he's got this conflict. He wants to have what Potter has.
Yes.
But at the same time, he understands that having friends, being a good person, doesn't necessarily come with being like Potter. So it's this conflict within him, because he could have left. He could have just left and just said, "No, I'm not going to take care of it." But he's like, "No, I'll take care of it after my dad died. I'll be the I'll run the company."
Well, even too, I love the dynamic too of the brother, George's brother,
Harry.
Yeah, Harry goes to college.
Yeah,
he gets to go off to college. And then Harry also ends up working for some cool company. And then Harry also goes to war.
Yeah, goes to war.
Harry saves all the men on the transport, you see, because he was there to save the men.
Because Harry wasn't there to save him because you weren't there to save Harry.
Because you were there to save Harry.
That's Clarence. That's not Harry.
That's Clarence. That is true. So yeah, right. So you see, so it's this. Yeah. Anyways.
So and he could have had this
George,
job, and Potter wanted to give him a job working for Potter, but just getting rid of the Bailey company, and he would have had more money. He would have had
that's right,
better house, all of those things, and he's just like, can't do it. They can't do it.
Do you know what's so good about this episode?
I'm loving it.
Do you know what's so good about this episode?
Yeah.
I guarantee you no other financial podcast in the market is doing something like this.
For sure, no. Seriously, if you threw this out to everybody in those, they'd be like, what is happening?
Hell?
Why
This is
they...
why Ryan is a secret genius, everybody.
Yep,
this was his idea. I love this. This is so good. It's such a good this movie. This is why this movie is so good. Because the underlying values and ideology of this movie is so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about the money.
It's not about the money. It's about doing something that makes people's lives better.
Right.
And Potter didn't make people's lives better. Because what's the whole... Or go finish your thought before I go on.
Well, I was going to say because, Ryan, no man that has a friend... Wait, I just totally... Damn it, I botched it. No man is a failure. No man is a failure if he has friends.
There you go.
Damn it, I can't think of the quote off the top of my head.
I know, you were preparing way too much for it.
I was building it up and then I blanked.
Yeah.
It's the quote at the very end of the movie from George, from Clarence is the angel that comes down to set him straight.
Yeah. So the movie progresses all through this. You learn all of George's life, right? Because the angels know what's going to happen to George as he gets older. Because comes to the very end, his brother Harry's in World War II. He gets the Congressional Medal of Honor because he saves a whole transport. Somehow, I don't know how he does it, but he saves a whole transport. He gets a credit. He's going to come home, and they're going to give this big award to him, and they have a big parade for him. Same day, stupid Uncle Billy, that stupid Uncle Billy.
I know.
Needed to take money and go deposit it.
Yep.
Right, $7,000 into the account at the bank. That's what's keeping the Bailey Building and Loan Company open. He sees Potter. He just somehow puts the money in the newspaper, gives it to Potter. Right.
The funny thing is, Potter ends up stealing the money. Really, is what happens.
He sees that he did. He steals it. I mean, seriously, like you couldn't be a worse old man than that.
Greedy bugger. Yeah, seriously.
So now the bank examiner shows up and needs to do basically an audit on the building and loan. Yep. Right. Yep. And they're missing $7,000, which, as Potter accused George of later on, what'd you do? You put that on the stock market?
And you spend it on girls? In the stock market? Did you spend it on
You spend it on girls.
Exactly.
And George just like, basically he's going to go to jail, right? He's going to bankrupt the company, all this because he's in charge. He's the president, all because of stupid Uncle Billy.
That's right. And he goes to Potter. George goes to Potter for help. And he's like, well, I've got a life insurance policy. And he's like, well, it's the cash value, right?
Yeah.
And there really isn't much cash value there, right? But it's like a $50,000. He's like, well, you're worth more dead than alive, and he kind of tells him that.
George off.
That's what sets George. George is like, well, maybe I need to kind of end it all and take the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point. We see what life would have been like without George Bailey.
See, now this goes to the parts of the movie that are so unbelievably really ridiculous. This is what I love. Just so think about this part. If any of you have watched it and you know this part where George then says he wished he'd never been born, right?
Yeah.
And as a ploy from the angels to help him understand so he won't commit suicide, which is what he's going to do.
Yep.
They give him the wish. You've never been born, right? And it stops snowing because some reason without George Bailey in it stops snowing the same day.
It doesn't snow, yeah.
So then he goes back into the town to see. Now keep in mind, everybody, it's Christmas Eve.
Right.
So he's now seeing what his life is like, but it's still Christmas Eve.
I do like the scene before because he's freaking out because he's trying to find the money before he actually wishes that he had never been born.
Oh,
and he goes back to his house, and his house is chaotic, right? Because everybody with children knows that your house just is bonkers crazy before Christmas with little kids. And he's like, Janie, do you have to keep practicing the same song, Janie? And she's like, oh, Father, I'm just practicing. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Daddy.
Oh, Daddy. That was good. That was really good. So anyways, that's one of the funny. I love that scene when he's yelling at all of his kids because I can totally relate.
Well, okay, so again, we're going off on these tangents for the movie. But this is why I love this movie, though. So Christmas Eve, he comes home, he yells at everybody because he's basically feels like he's going to go to jail.
Yeah, he's
right?
like, oh, my life's over. Yeah.
And he takes off, and he goes to Martini's, the bar. So this is what I love about it. It's Christmas Eve, and he's at a bar.
Yeah.
And who does he meet? He meets his daughter's teacher, whom earlier he just yelled at on the phone.
Yeah.
And they're both alone drinking at a bar on Christmas Eve.
Although I will admit, the older I get and the more stressed I can relate to that scene better now, the older I get.
Yeah. And he gets he gets knocked out by Mr. Welch. That's who's the teacher, because he yelled at the teacher.
It's not enough. She has to take care of your snotty-nosed kids.
Yep. So that's what drives George to wish he had never been born. So now he's seeing the world without George Bailey in it. Without George running the one-horse institution to be the place that people could go without having to crawl to Potter for money. Now, again, it's Christmas Eve, and what's happened? There are strip clubs and gambling halls everywhere.
Pottersville.
Apparently, George is the only person that has morals and ethics. Nobody else does. Apparently, nobody else does. It's just George.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
And he's just going down in Pottersville, and it is just, and it's a riot. It's Christmas Eve, and people are just acting like it's a regular Friday night.
It is. Well, and it's funny too because he keeps trying to like connect with the people that were his friends, and they're all like,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He sees Mary, the like she's a widower, because apparently he was the only man for he was the only man
that's
for her,
the other. I was going to
him.
say like, so Mary is just and she's not married, and she just works at the library.
She's a spinster. She's a librarian spinster.
It's like she's pretty.
Yeah.
There's no way Mary would not have been married. There's no way she would have been married.
Dude.
For
Mary
sure.
was awesome. Mary was awesome.
So he sees Mary. This is the other part. And he's trying to like talk to her. And she's just like, I don't know you. Get out of my face.
Yeah.
And she runs into
Mary,
a crowd.
Mary, don't you recognize me,
Don't
Mary?
you know me?
Mary, don't you know me,
so
Mary?
then this leads to for sure the most ridiculous part of this is that he's trying to, he's freaking out because Mary doesn't know him.
Right.
Bert the cop shows up. He punches Bert the cop and starts running, sprinting. And Bert's like, I need to take him down, and just starts unloading his gun into a crowd of people. He's trying to kill George.
Wait a second. Do you
crowd of people.
Do you realize who the other, what the other friend's name was? Because there's two friends that he has.
Oh, yeah, Bert and Ernie.
Bert and Ernie.
Yeah. Bert
I
and
love
Ernie.
that one. It's so funny. Bert
so
and Ernie.
So Bert just thinks like, hey, you know what? This guy just needs to be killed. I've got a gun. I'm just going to shoot randomly. And he's a terrible shot because George is running straight. All you got to do is just shoot straight.
Yeah.
And he misses all of them.
So
and hopefully he didn't hit innocent bystanders. We don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he did.
We don't know.
Because it's Pottersville. Yeah. Potter owns the police department.
Right. Exactly.
So then George goes and wishes he was alive, and no big deal because everybody in the town brings him money because a man is never a failure if he has friends.
A man is never a failure if he has friends. That is true. And then when he comes back to life and it starts snowing again, he comes back to reality. He fills the pot in his pocket. He has the petals from Zuzu.
Yeah, that's right.
Zuzu. Anyways,
my lips bleeding, Bert. My lips bleeding.
My lips bleeding, Bert.
Yeah.
I'll hit you again.
Get out of here,
so
Bert.
good.
Get out.
Get out of here, Bert.
So here's the lesson, Ty. Give us the lesson here.
No. You. I like it.
No.
This is okay.
You got
it. The moral of the story is this, right? yes, all these financial things that we talk about are very important for everybody, right?
Yep.
And we love what we do. We love helping people with their monies. We like helping people make more money. We love all these things. But what really matters is the relationship.
Yeah.
That's what matters. That's all that matters.
It is.
Right?
It really
That's
is.
what matters.
Because
Ryan,
if you're not a failure,
you are not a failure.
If you have friends, you can't.
I am your friend.
If you fail, then the friends aren't there for you. I think that's the quote.
I think that's the quote.
It's something like that.
I was looking for, I have it saved somewhere on my phone, and I literally was just looking for it. I took a picture of it on my phone, and I have it saved somewhere in my photo archives, this little screen, because it's written in the back of a book. What book is it? I think it's
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer, yep.
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
That's right. And Clarence. And that's the famous scene where the bell rings, and his little Zuzu daughter says, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings, right?
That's right. That's right. Way to go, Clarence.
Oh, Clarence. Oh. So the moral of the story is...
Clarence.
What?
Attaboy, Clarence.
Attaboy, Clarence. I love it. The best part, too, my favorite, is when the bank examiner walks up and he's all... He's all angry. He takes some money out of his pocket and puts it in the bowl because they're all giving George the money to help him out. And then the bank examiner starts singing the Christmas songs with everybody.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yep.
So good. So good.
Yeah, so everybody just remember, if you've got friends, you're not a failure.
You're not a failure. And
don't use people. Use things. Don't use people.
Use things, don't use people. That's right. And the whole reason that Ryan and I are here, it's not a selfish plug, but we love making friends with people. We love helping people. Any way we can, and that's really what this whole podcast is about. Any way we can help people understand something better so that they can avoid the Potters of the world.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Yeah, if you've been invited to a 3-day boot camp, just be careful. Be careful. You might be meeting Mr. Potter.
Yes.
You might be.
Or if you are investing all of your money that you have in crypto, you might be following a Potter.
Yeah, you might be. So just be careful of it.
Just be careful.
And the last thing is, I just hope that if anybody who hasn't seen it and is watching, just go watch the movie.
Right.
Invest the time and go watch it.
It's good.
And
you learn a little bit about finances.
Yeah. And tell me how good the impression is. That's all I care about, actually.
Our subscribers just went down by 30%. totally worth it.
That's our Christmas
totally
episode.
Worth it.
That's our Christmas episode. So we just wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Yep.
And
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever your crazy
Kwanzaa.
A very dignified Ramadan.
Yeah. And Ty's going to do a year-end review next week.
Yep.
And it's probably just going to be Ty.
It is.
I may be on it. Who knows?
Ryan will be laid up from surgery.
Yep. Got to repair a ligament in my knee.
Fixing his knee.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, everybody out there, give him all your good thoughts and prayers, well wishes for Ryan, because Ryan is truly our friend, and because of Ryan, we are not failures.
That is right.
So,
that is right.
So yeah, I'll do the year in review. Just kind of recap what's happened in the markets this year, all the craziness that ensued, and kind of some things we're seeing for next year. So we'll talk about that. I will talk about that. But yeah,
and the ETF challenge,
everybody.
You're going to give everybody
I will
report.
give some data on that.
You're going to list it, top 5, and who's in last place. Oh, can't wait.
Yep, it'll be a good one.
Can't wait.
Compound Town, we'll see.
Compound Town,
running my finances.
Oh my gosh.
There's some good ones in there. There's some good names in there. Ryan, hey. We all, the listeners and myself, we all appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you. We couldn't do any of this without you. So
no, you too.
Hopefully you have a wonderful Christmas with your wife and your boys.
Enjoy your time. I hope your dog likes his stocking cap that I got it.
Oh, she loves it.
Yeah, good.
She's already been wearing the hat.
Oh, perfect. Good. All right, man. It's been fun. I can't wait to do this next year when we do It's a Wonderful Life again. Part 2.
What movie should we do? No, next year we're reviewing Die Hard. That's what we're reviewing.
I've never seen Die Hard, so I have to watch it. Exactly. Never seen it. Never seen it.
Holy crap. Go watch Die Hard. It's the best movie of all time. And it is a Christmas movie.
It's better than It's a Wonderful Life. Don't tell me that.
It's close. 1A, 1B.
Okay. Perfect. All right, Ty.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time, man. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. You too.
That's it. Hey, thanks for listening to the Ty and Rye, the Finance Guys podcast today. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit subscribe. That way you won't miss any future episodes. Also, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Ty and Rye Podcast. Also, check us out at mindprosperteam.com. Thanks. We will see you next week.